battles alien ships to abduct inhabitants of friendly planet. Yellow creature gobbles dots while being pursued through maze by monsters. Believe it or not, those things are really happening on 200 electronic video games here at Chicago Fest. What you see here is part of a national phenomenon that we call high-tech rec, a phenomenon that had to happen when the TV set married the computer. It starts with a quarter, and it ends up as a national industry estimated at $7.5 billion a year. Video games. They seem to have captured America's imagination, and its pocket change as well. Right now, the country's two hottest games are Chicago games. There's Defender, a space battle game made by Williams Electronics on the north side. The object is to fly over your planet, shooting down the enemy spacecraft, which are trying to capture your humanoids. Defender is prized for its nifty sound and visual effects. In suburban Franklin Park, you'll find Midway Manufacturing feverishly turning out 350 Pac-Man games every day in 3 different cabinet styles. Pac-Man is known as the cute game. A voracious little yellow globe gobbles up golden dots and various kinds of fruit, all the while being pursued by 4 hungry monsters, which can themselves be eaten at crucial moments. Both Defender and Pac-Man are wildly successful, and their corporate marketing executives think they know why.
The video games are becoming more and more popular, and it's because today's generation grew up on television.
They're diving at you, they're bombing you, and here you are, one guy fighting off the whole universe of aliens, and you do get a certain amount of thrill and excitement and a feeling of, boy, when you conquer this game, you really come away satisfied.
We're only limited on video games by the video game designers and engineers' imaginations. Anything they can come up with, we can put on that TV set.
The big explosion in coin-operated video games began in 1979 with Space Invaders. It, like Pac-Man, was designed in Japan, where both games became national crazes. Williams Electronics projects $200 million in revenues this year. Midway expects to do at least that well. Both companies are riding the crest of the video wave that this year will see Americans drop 300 billion quarters into the machines. Tomorrow night, on part 2 of High Tech Rec, we will meet a teenage video game wizard. We'll also talk to some psychologists about the possible side effects of playing these games, and we'll meet the Chicago alderman who wants to ban video games for everybody under the age of 18. From Navy Pier, Barry Burnson, News Center 5.
Move over Space Invaders, we found some new games. If you are a fan, we don't have to tell you that video games are taking this country by storm, keeping thousands of kids as well as adults glued to their flashing screens. But there are some people who are worried that the games could be having a negative effect on the players. Barry Burnson joins us now for part 2 of High Tech Rec. And you talk about some of those negative effects and the people who are upset about it.
That's true. In fact, some of the things that doctors are starting to see are Space Invaders elbow, Defender wrist, and Pac-Man pinky. These are really coming into medical offices as the video game wave continues to build. We call them the side effects of high-tech rec. In coin-operated games, there once was a king by the name of pinball, but now 60 to 75% of the industry is video games. Yesterday's pinball wizards are today's captains of video. Mother's Pinball at the corner of Routes 14 and 83 in northwest suburban Mount Prospect. A lot of kids drop a lot of quarters in here, but despite the name of the place, Mother's Pinball, the current score is pinball machines 6, video games 45. George Macy is an average teenager who spends a lot of time here at Mother's, but not much money. He is so skillful at playing the game Defender that he can make a single quarter last for an hour or more by earning additional plays or attack waves. One day last month, at age 14, George racked up 1,774,125 points. No one else has ever come close, at least in the known universe.
Well, when you're playing the game, you always get the green men down at the bottom so that they don't pick up your men and turn into mutants, because when that happens, you can give up the game, because when you lose your world, there's no way of getting out of it.
The planet can blow up.
Yeah, the planet can blow up and you go into space. These videos a lot more, probably the funnest thing is designing one. That's what I like to do the most.
There are those who say the impact of video games isn't all good. Dr. Sherry Turkle, a sociologist at MIT, says these games emphasize power, aggression, macho, and manipulation. We talked about that with two Chicago psychologists.
One of the things that makes people upset is that kids hang around and are obviously having a good time, and I think that people always get nervous when that's happening. So I think that some of the dangers are overstated. But if there's any danger in these games, it seems to me it's that breaking up of the social contacts, that's such a loner sort of activity.
Well, besides the feeling of competence, I think there's also an added benefit of exposure to the video screen and getting prepared for the advent of the computer age.
Chicago Alderman Patrick Hewells believes that where there are video games, there could be trouble. In the residential areas of his Bridgeport ward, Hewells says some small unlicensed arcades have become storefront hangouts, breeding gangs and drug traffic. Hewells wants to ban the games in Chicago for people under age 18.
They're too close to the school, they're too close to the church, or they're in the middle residential zone. And the kids congregating, people, they're blocking the sidewalk and just hanging around. We have fine parks throughout our city. We have the Valentine's Boys Club. There's other forms of recreation that the kids can get involved in.
The Hewells game ban ordinance will probably come up before the City Council next month. And next year, the U.S. Supreme Court will decide whether such age restrictions are constitutional, a decision that's vitally important to the entire coin-operated industry and pack maniacs and everybody else.
Part 3 tomorrow.
You got it.
All right.
It plays a long time for a quarter. Here in Illinois, a teenager has given up on his attempt to break the national point record for the Asteroid video game. Is that right, Barry Burnson?
I think that's right.
Okay. John Jones made more than 20 million points after playing for 41 hours on a quarter. The record is nearly 26 million points, and if you want to know anything about video games, this is the man that can tell you about it, Barry Burnson. Tonight you're going to give us part 3 on his report, High Tech Rec. What is High Tech Rec?
Well, it's recreation that is high technology, you know.
Makes sense.
Video game makers believe that their products are starting to attract a whole new market. Adults, especially women, who would not have been caught dead playing pinball. The competition in this industry is so fierce the game makers won't even tell me the names of their new games, which are due out in October. But we did manage to get a glimpse into the future. What Sam Dicker does for a living is to invent video games. He's one of the resident computer geniuses at Chicago's Williams Electronics Company. Last year, Dicker co-designed Defender, which right now is the #1 coin game in the country. Sam uses this computer for a process he calls birthing, developing new effects for games yet to be invented. The road from here to finished video game may end up costing a company $1 million. But nationwide, Defender is currently earning nearly $8 million a week. What makes a good video game designer?
Well, you have to be a science fiction fan, you have to be a programmer, you have to be kind of an artist. We actually have to first please ourselves, and we're about the most finicky players around. We've played every game until we're bored of it. Just like a movie, you want to get lost in it. You want to forget that you're playing a game. You want to, you know, when the game's over, you want to suddenly realize that you're in the arcade.
At Mother's Pinball in Mount Prospect, companies send their prototype games to be tried out in the field. Here, players can play games not yet available anywhere else.
We watch the players, we check to see how long they play the game. They'll tell us it's too fast, it's too slow, it's too easy to play, it's too hard to play.
Then there are the pirates, companies which illegally copy a successful game, undercut prices, and get out of the market before the legitimate manufacturer can take the case to court. This is the original Pac-Man. This is a rip-off version. In this business, timing is everything for both player and marketing exec.
The life of a video game is basically 6 months to a year, depending upon the popularity of the game.
And as players roll up higher and higher scores, the video game companies will try to roll up higher and higher profits.
A new game being placed on location will always draw the player's first quarter. The secret in this industry is to get his second quarter and his third quarter and his fourth quarter and his fifth quarter.
Well, the obvious question is, of course, how long will this smashing success last for video games? Well, there are plenty of new competitors in the field, each one taking more or less of the players' 300 billion quarters a year in this country. Home video game owners will soon be able to buy their own versions of Asteroids, Galaxians, and Pac-Man. So for the video warrior, it appears the sky is the limit, and we should note finally the U.S. military is about to start using modified video games to train aircraft pilots and tank drivers.
High Tech Rec.